I still don't know to look for the little red light, but now I know. Today I learned something new. Hi everybody and welcome back to my channel. My name is Paola. I'm a surrealist artist working in Oakland, California. Welcome to my channel. Welcome back to my channel. If you've been here before, extra besitos for you. If this is your first time here, thank you for clicking on my video. This last couple of weeks I have been spending it, instead of creating art, learning about art. I wanted to come and teach you guys a little art history and talk about an art movement that inspires my art today. And Surrealism is an art movement, took off in around 1924 and peaked in the 1930s. You've heard a lot of surrealist painters, Salvador Dali, René Magritte, those being the two major players in the surrealist painting game. I love the dreamlike quality of surrealist work. I think that that's my favorite thing of it all. So I've been drawn to create surrealist art, and I've been creating surrealist art for a couple of years now, since 2018. That's the art that I am creating. I was intrigued to figure out where the history came from. I am going to now tell you a little bit about it, tell you about the history of where surrealism comes, tell you a little bit about the power of art, and invite you to also create some art and also maybe join a movement, join your community. After all, that is the most powerful thing that we have.
Part 1. What inspired art movements to start?
Let me start by introducing you. Hugo Ball and Emmy Hemmings were husband and wife team that were from Berlin and were refugees to Switzerland in 1915. In 1916, they were down on their money but not on their spirits. Emmy and Hugo decided that they would open the Café Voltaire in Zurich. It was only open for about 6 months before it shut down, but it did inspire a lot of art movements, and it was the start place of the Dada movement. So Dada, or Dadaism, was a movement started by both Hugo Ball and Emmy Hemmings. Even though in a lot of places only Hugo Ball gets the credit, you have to actually start doing research into Emmy Hemmings for them to credit her. So they felt like Dada was a good word for it, because they literally didn't want it to mean anything apart from it being anti-war and anti-bourgeois. And so for 6 months in the Cafe Voltaire, Emmy, Hugo, and a bunch of other people came through and started doing kind of stand-ups art, and they would just have a good old time. So that's where the Dada movement started in 1916 in Zurich, and there was a couple of other people that visited the Café Voltaire, like Tristan, who then was one of the main people who brought the Dada movement to other places. He took it to Paris. He also took it to New York. He actually traveled to New York with the purpose of just sharing the Dada movement and inviting artists to kind of join this anti-art movement. Dada in itself is a little bit hard to give an exact definition for. It's a rejectional to traditional art, and it's a rejection to establishment telling us what art is and what is not. Is that they were inviting the artists to tell you what is art. All throughout history, the only way that paintings have gotten made were if they were commissioned by a really wealthy family. But we see so many portraits in history of just royal and wealthy families. And so we get a brand new wave of artists with the Dada movement. People kind of like Marcel Duchamp, who's an American artist, who basically went ahead and took took a urinal and named it the fountain and proclaimed it art. He also drew a mustache on the Mona Lisa, and while people found this disrespectful, he thought, I'm telling you, this is my art. Duchamp's art, he made a lot of ready-made, kind of just everyday use items being used as art, and he would just say this is art. And I think that it was an invitation for other artists to do the same and to start including more, I don't want to say random things, but because it's the Dada movement, I almost do want to say random. This whole thing in the Dada movement where how you write a Dada poem is you just put words in a bag, shake it up and dump it on the floor, and then you just recite it. So what Dada was trying to do, it was trying to shock and confuse people. There was such a disillusionment with society at the time. Dada only lasted from 1916 to about 1920, so like 4 years. In 1920, they had a big like Dada party where the central and most like explicit piece was a German soldier with a pig's head hanging from the top of the ceiling. While Dada didn't last for very long, it did lead to different art movements such as Surrealism, which is what we're here to talk about. Andre Breton, he wrote the Surrealist Manifesto in 1924. He was a part of the Dada party but had broken apart from the Dada party because he thought that, as random as these items might be, he thought that there was probably subconscious meaning as to why the artists were choosing this item. And because of Freud, surrealists really like admired Freud and were taking a lot of unconscious ideas in their art, or trying to find the unconscious, or trying to tap into the unconscious of their minds in order to display the art. So I think that here is where we really like see a shift in artists telling you like, oh, this has no meaning, to now maybe artists having a little bit to explain more to you what the meaning is. How do artists respond to the chaos of post-war society through anti-art? And I think that the Dada movement was definitely an invitation for artists, or for people to become artists, by saying anything can be art. You as an artist just have to declare that it is art. You're basically inviting chaos, which in good sense, like I think that when the world is already a little bit chaotic, inviting a little bit more chaos is a little bit necessary. While I was doing research for this video, I definitely took a long look at a lot of different arts. I noticed before 1914 is there was like a lot of portraits, a lot of landscapes. I even looked into some of the artists that were actually hired by the government to be like official war painters, and they would sit up on like these high towers and then just like paint what they were seeing, the landscapes and the bodies and the people. It is really interesting to see how like the colors and the palettes and everything just kind of changes due to the climate and just the real life situations that people have to go through.
Part 3. A look into the art.
Theophile Steinlen, he was born in Switzerland, and he went back to Switzerland during the war, and he would make art basically for the working class people. He would use cats in his art to kind of show a little bit of a bohemian lifestyle that is anti-establishment. He thought that the cats in Paris, when he was living in Paris, that were kind of just like roaming around that he would feed, were a sign and kind of like a hope for anti-establishment and people just being able to like freely roam around. So he used cats a lot in his political art in the beginning, and once the war started, his art like had shifted entirely to actually just like showing people and the horrors and the travel and the displacement of people actually. And then there's another artist, John Singer Sargent. He was an American portrait painter, and he was an official war artist during the World War One. In his beginning portraits, he was definitely like showing leisure and relaxation and color, and then in his like war paintings, it's so gray. And Otto Dix, who I mentioned before, he's a German painter and printmaker. He lived in Germany during World War One. He actually released a series that was 50 paintings titled The War, and you can go find them. I'm gonna just show you one of them that is horrifying. It almost looks like a kid's horrifying cartoon dream to me. I thought that his images were definitely worthwhile looking at. Okay, then we have Paul Nash. He was an English artist, and he was a another official war artist, but he focused mainly on landscapes. And through his like landscapes, he showed how like devastating and continuous like bombings were hurting the landscape and the land. All of these artists were prior to the Dada movement, but I really wanted you to see what the art looked like prior to the Dada movement, because the art that I'm going to show you now post Cabaret Voltaire, which I hope that we can all go to Cabaret Voltaire, even though the original Cabaret Voltaire closed. It's such an important part of history that they do have a new Cabaret Voltaire, so it would be a little bit cool to go one day. Hugo Ball and Emmy Hemmings were poets. Emmy was a singer. A lot of the people that were part of the Cabaret Voltaire, Emmy was actually the only female mentioned, and a lot of the other artists said that it was Emmy's songs that kept them afloat. They were like, if Emmy didn't sing here with the voice of an angel that she has, honestly, we would have been out of business quicker than the 6 months that we were in. But I want to show you what some of the art looked like post Cabaret Voltaire. Okay, so Marcel Duchamp. It's interesting that like this is still the stool that we use, like the little bicycle. I mean, the little stool that most homes have. I think that's quite interesting. Okay, so I have Sophie Tabeur. I really liked this painting. This is one that I saved because I really liked it. I really like the colors. I think that the bottom part kind of gives me like ship mermaid vibes at the same time, or kind of like a cartoon, like a kid's cartoon. And the top and the cubes, I just really like the pink. I'm a sucker for pink. So if a painting has pink in it, I'm like there for it. I like it. It's called Shapes and Colors, by the way. Here's another one by Sophie Tabeur. It kind of gives me like woman at a ball. Like just like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 women just like roaming around in their ball gown. The front lady has just like the most beautiful colors ball gowns, but that's what I see. Bernard Ledger, 1917, soldiers playing cards. I'm not gonna lie, this is a painting that started it all. Soldiers playing cards. When I saw this painting, I think that I saw it a couple of months ago, and honestly, it lives in my head rent free. The way that the soldiers are kind of like robots, the way that the body parts are like not joined, the way that they're just like playing a game, and the way that it's just so many shapes and you can look at it forever. I was like, that is crazy. And because this is from 1917 and it's called Soldiers Playing Cards, you almost know immediately the kind of like political commentary that this is sending out. I don't know, this painting is just crazy. I wanted to find another painting by Fernand Ledger because I didn't want to just think about this one painting, even though this one does live in my head rent free. So I found this one called Two Women Holding Flowers. I like how he has kind of like the same technique of like the bocce body parts, and he's definitely using the same colors that he used in Soldiers Playing Cards. The people do look more like people and not as much like robots in this one though. Their shiny hair looks a little bit robotic, the checkered pattern gives it a little bit of a play, kind of like the cards had as well. I have another artist, Man Ray, and I really like this one. It's called Acrobat, and I do see an acrobat here, but I also see just like a woman sitting down. But I like how like the shapes around it are like spinning. I think that that is really beautiful, and I think that that's a cool way of just like portraying art. Those are a couple of the Dada paintings that I wanted you to take a look at with me, and let me know how you feel about those in comparison to the first ones that I showed you. Like I said, infamously called the anti-art movement. Now we can go ahead and move on to surrealism. So I went ahead and asked my very reputable source, ChatGPT, what the first surrealist painting that was ever created was. And it said that it's kind of hard to pinpoint, but that a lot of the times it's credited to Magritte, René Magritte, and it's The Lost Jockey. So writer, this jockey, he's riding in kind of like a chessboard, pawns, Yeah, the ponds. Sorry, I got confused with Twilight. The ponds have like these trees growing out of them, and then it almost looks like a stage. I think that it was inspired by a stage that he got to look at a lot. Rene Magritte is one of like the biggest names in the surrealist world. He's the guy who painted like the men falling, like the men raining, and the apple in front of the man. So if you know those paintings, you've seen Magritte. Magritte was actually inspired by a painting that he had seen in 1915, prior to even the Surrealist movement starting, prior to the Dada movement starting. The painting is by Giorgio de Chirico, and it's called The Sound of Love. I know that a lot of artists are looking into the Roman sculptures for like their shading and their people, because as we learned with the birth of Venus, is she, as her arm is a little bit like distorted, is shaped more like a Roman sculpture. My personal favorite surrealist. We have Salvador Dali, his Ship with a Butterfly painting, Ship with a Butterfly Wings as Sails painting that I'm going to post right here is so incredibly beautiful to me. I don't have a print of it, so I don't get to look at it as often as I would, but if I ever do get my hands on a print of it, that would be a nice addition to my collection. I love this painting. Remedios Varo, she is a Mexican surrealist painter. And to bring it a little bit back into the cats, she also used cats a lot in her artwork. I don't necessarily know if she was using them the same way as Steinfeld, but she definitely was a cat lover, just like me. So, but she painted this like little cat, kind of like fern plant thing that I feel like this is Tunti in my dreams. Tunti's my cat. I feel like that's Tunti in my dreams. So I would say that those are kind of all my favorite surrealist paintings. Let me know if any of those painters in particular we should do a little bit more of a deep dive on. I would be happy to recreate a painting by Dali or a painting by Frida and see what I can learn. Even honestly, Magritte or Varos, any of them would be pretty incredible to just recreate and see what it is that I can learn from their techniques. So let me know if you're interested in a deep dive in any of those specific artists. I'm more than happy to get really into it. Thank you for watching. My website is going to be linked down below, as well as all of my social medias, TikTok, Instagram, Twitter, Patreon, all of it down there. An extra special thank you to my patrons. I literally love you guys so much. Y'all rock the house down. Thank you for all the support that you give me like throughout the whole year. Hope you learned. I will see you next week with another video. Mwah. That's it. Bye bye bye.